You're walking through a dense forest when suddenly, a figure emerges from behind the trees. But this isn't just any human. It's a Neanderthal, standing 5'5", with a barrel chest, massive hands, and a skull built like a battering ram. Their bones are twice as thick as yours, their muscles packed with raw power that makes modern bodybuilders look weak. They've survived ice ages, hunted woolly mammoths with nothing but stone tools, and possessed a grip strength that could crush your smartphone like a potato chip. So here's the ultimate question. If you had to face off against our extinct cousins in a no-holds-barred survival contest, who would actually come out on top? Subscribe to Weird Histories and drop a comment with your favorite historical topic. We might cover it next. Let's start with the most obvious advantage your Neanderthal opponent would have. They were built like an absolute unit. When paleoanthropologists first discovered Neanderthal remains, they couldn't believe what they were looking at. These weren't just slightly different humans. They were biological powerhouses, engineered by hundreds of thousands of years of surviving in conditions that would kill most modern humans within days. The average Neanderthal male stood around 5'5" and weighed about 180 pounds. But here's where it gets interesting. That weight wasn't fat or even normal muscle. It was dense, compact muscle mass wrapped around bones that were up to 50% thicker than yours. To put this in perspective, if you took a modern NFL linebacker and compressed all that muscle into a shorter, stockier frame while doubling the bone density, you'd start to approach Neanderthal proportions. Their ribcage was barrel-shaped and massive, housing lungs that could process oxygen more efficiently in the thin, cold air of Ice Age Europe. Their shoulders were broader, their arms longer in proportion to their body, and their hands, well, their hands tell a story of pure gripping power. Neanderthal finger bones show muscle attachment points that suggest grip strength that would make modern rock climbers weep with envy. But here's what really sets them apart. Their bones weren't just thick for show. Analysis of Neanderthal remains reveals that their bone mineral density was extraordinarily high, meaning their skeletons could withstand impacts and stresses that would shatter modern human bones. This wasn't just genetic luck. It was the result of a lifestyle that demanded constant physical exertion. Every day was leg day, arm day, and core day, all rolled into one brutal survival workout. Scientists estimate that the average Neanderthal had muscle mass equivalent to what you'd see in elite modern athletes, except this was their baseline normal. They weren't hitting the gym 3 times a week. They were living a lifestyle that would make CrossFit athletes quit after a single day. And this physical superiority wasn't limited to just the men. Neanderthal women were also built like powerhouses, often stronger than modern human males. Now, having thick bones and big muscles is one thing, but how does that translate to actual functional strength? The evidence is pretty mind-blowing. Biomechanical studies of Neanderthal skeletal remains suggest they possessed strength levels that would put them in the top tier of modern human athletes, and that's before we factor in their specialized adaptations. Take their spear-throwing ability, for example. Neanderthals hunted with thrusting spears rather than thrown javelins, which meant they had to get up close and personal with massive Ice Age predators. The muscle attachments on their arm bones show they could generate tremendous force in close-quarter thrusting motions. We're talking about the ability to drive a stone-tipped spear through the hide and into the vital organs of a woolly rhinoceros or cave bear, animals that could weigh over a ton. Their lower body strength was equally impressive. The shape and robusticity of their leg bones indicate they could navigate rough, mountainous terrain while carrying heavy loads, like dragging a slaughtered mammoth back to camp. Modern human hunters using traditional methods typically need multiple people and sophisticated tools to accomplish what a small group of Neanderthals could handle with raw muscle power. But perhaps most impressive was their core strength and overall body stability. Living in a world without smooth surfaces, stairs, or predictable terrain meant every step required balance and strength. Their spine attachments and pelvic structure show adaptations for incredible stability and power transfer. They could probably deadlift their own body weight without breaking a sweat. And remember, they were already carrying around 180 pounds of solid muscle and dense bone. Laboratory experiments trying to replicate Neanderthal tool-making techniques have shown that creating their stone tools requires grip strength and sustained hand power that most modern humans simply can't maintain. The repetitive striking motions needed to create their sophisticated stone implements would leave most of us with severe muscle fatigue and potentially injury, yet this was everyday work for them. What's really fascinating is that this strength came with efficiency. Neanderthals weren't just brute force machines, they were economical powerhouses. Their bodies were designed to generate maximum force with minimal energy expenditure, crucial for survival when calories were scarce and every movement could mean the difference between life and death. Raw strength is impressive, but endurance is what separates survivors from casualties, and Neanderthals were essentially walking endurance machines. Their cardiovascular and respiratory systems were tuned for sustained activity in harsh conditions that would hospitalize modern humans. This wasn't just about being tough. It was about biological engineering, perfected over hundreds of thousands of years. Their enlarged nasal cavities weren't just for show. These massive nasal passages were designed to warm and humidify frigid air before it reached their lungs, allowing them to maintain high activity levels even in sub-zero temperatures. Meanwhile, their barrel-shaped chest housed lungs that could extract more oxygen from each breath, giving them a cardiovascular advantage that would make modern endurance athletes jealous. Studies of Neanderthal lifestyle patterns suggest they maintained high levels of physical activity throughout their entire lives. There was no retirement, no taking it easy in old age. Archaeological evidence shows Neanderthals in their 40s and 50s, ancient by their standards, still engaging in the same physically demanding activities as their younger counterparts. This constant conditioning created bodies that simply didn't know how to quit. Their muscle fiber composition was likely different from modern humans as well. Evidence suggests a higher proportion of slow-twitch muscle fibers, the kind that excel at sustained activity rather than explosive power. This would allow them to maintain steady, powerful output for extended periods. Exactly what you need when tracking wounded prey across miles of rough terrain or working stone tools for hours at a time. But here's where it gets really interesting. Their recovery capabilities were probably superior to ours as well. The robust bone structure that made them so strong also made them more resistant to the microfractures and stress injuries that plague modern athletes. Their dense muscle mass had better blood flow and nutrient delivery, meaning they could bounce back from physical stress faster than we can. The combination of strength and endurance created something unprecedented, a human subspecies that could maintain high-intensity physical activity as their normal state of existence. While modern humans excel at short bursts of activity followed by rest and recovery, Neanderthals seem designed for sustained, grinding physical effort. In a prolonged physical confrontation, this endurance advantage could be the deciding factor that tips the scales in their favor, regardless of any tactical or technological advantages their opponent might possess. For decades, popular culture painted Neanderthals as knuckle-dragging brutes with the intelligence of a particularly slow gorilla. This stereotype was so pervasive that Neanderthal became an insult for anyone displaying less than brilliant behavior. But here's the thing that would shock most people. Neanderthal brains were actually larger than modern human brains. Not slightly larger, significantly larger, with an average cranial capacity of about 1,500 cubic centimeters compared to our 2,400. Now, before you start feeling intellectually inferior to your extinct cousins, brain size alone doesn't determine intelligence. It's like comparing computer processors. A bigger chip doesn't automatically mean better performance. What matters is the organization, the connections, and how efficiently the system processes information. But the fact that Neanderthals packed more neural tissue into their skulls definitely challenges the dumb caveman narrative. Recent archaeological discoveries have completely revolutionized our understanding of Neanderthal intelligence. They weren't just surviving through brute force. They were thinking, planning, and problem-solving in ways that required sophisticated cognitive abilities. At sites across Europe, researchers have found evidence of complex tool-making sequences that would have required multi-step planning, spatial reasoning, and the ability to envision a finished product before beginning work. The Mousterian tool tradition, associated with Neanderthals, shows a level of technical sophistication that demands respect. These weren't random rocks chipped into sharp edges. They were carefully planned implements created using the Levallois technique, a method so complex that modern archaeologists need extensive training to master it. This technique requires understanding the internal structure of stone, predicting how it will fracture, and maintaining a mental template of the desired end product throughout the creation process. But perhaps most impressive is the evidence of Neanderthal innovation and adaptation. Different Neanderthal populations developed distinct tool traditions adapted to their local environments and prey. This suggests not just intelligence, but cultural learning and the ability to modify techniques based on changing circumstances. They weren't mindlessly following instinct. They were actively problem-solving and improving their technology over time. The complexity of their hunting strategies also reveals sophisticated cognitive abilities. Taking down megafauna like mammoths or woolly rhinos wasn't just about being strong enough to thrust a spear. It required understanding animal behavior, coordinating group tactics, and timing attacks with precision. Archaeological evidence suggests Neanderthals could predict seasonal animal migrations and plan hunting expeditions accordingly. Intelligence isn't just about making tools or solving abstract problems. It's about strategic thinking, and Neanderthals demonstrated strategic capabilities that would impress modern military tacticians. Their hunting sites reveal evidence of sophisticated ambush techniques, coordinated group attacks, and long-term planning that goes far beyond simple opportunistic scavenging. At locations like Schöningen in Germany, researchers have uncovered evidence of Neanderthal hunting strategies that required incredible foresight and coordination. They would drive entire herds of animals into natural traps, coordinate attacks from multiple directions, and even create artificial barriers to funnel prey into kill zones. This level of tactical thinking requires the ability to visualize complex scenarios, communicate detailed plans to group members, and execute coordinated strategies under pressure. Their site selection shows another level of strategic intelligence. Neanderthal campsites weren't randomly chosen. They were carefully selected based on multiple factors including proximity to water, availability of raw materials for toolmaking, defensive advantages, and access to game trails. Many sites show evidence of long-term occupation and modification, suggesting they could evaluate locations for their long-term potential, rather than just immediate needs. The evidence also suggests Neanderthals could engage in complex resource management. They would transport high-quality stone materials over significant distances, indicating they could evaluate the trade-offs between immediate convenience and long-term advantage. Some sites show evidence of stockpiling materials and tools, demonstrating the ability to plan for future needs, rather than just reacting to immediate circumstances. Their territorial behavior also reveals strategic thinking. Different Neanderthal groups maintained distinct territories with defined boundaries, and there's evidence they could negotiate access to resources through complex social arrangements. This requires understanding not just geography, but social dynamics, negotiation, and the ability to maintain agreements over extended periods. Perhaps most impressively, Neanderthals showed the ability to adapt their strategies based on changing conditions. During periods of climate change, they modified their hunting techniques, changed their tool-making traditions, and even altered their settlement patterns. This behavioral flexibility demonstrates not just intelligence, but the kind of adaptive strategic thinking that has made humans successful as a species. The speed at which they could process tactical information during hunts was probably superior to most modern humans. When facing a charging cave bear or coordinating an attack on a mammoth, there's no time for lengthy deliberation. Neanderthals had to make split-second tactical decisions that could mean the difference between a successful hunt and becoming the hunted. The true test of intelligence isn't just solving problems, it's learning from experience, remembering solutions, and building upon previous knowledge to create innovations. Neanderthals excelled in all these areas, developing sophisticated learning systems that allowed them to accumulate and transmit knowledge across generations. Archaeological evidence reveals that Neanderthals had remarkable memory capabilities, particularly for spatial and environmental information. They could navigate complex landscapes without maps, remember the locations of seasonal resources across vast territories, and return to productive hunting or gathering spots year after year. This wasn't just simple pattern recognition. It required creating detailed mental maps of their environment and updating them based on changing conditions. Their learning abilities were equally impressive. Young Neanderthals underwent extended apprenticeships in tool-making, hunting, and survival skills. The complexity and consistency of their tool traditions across different sites suggest they had developed effective teaching methods that could reliably transmit technical knowledge from experienced craftsmen to novices. This social learning system allowed them to maintain and improve their technology over thousands of generations. Innovation was a constant feature of Neanderthal culture. They didn't just maintain static traditions, they continuously refined and improved their techniques. Archaeological sites show gradual improvements in tool design, hunting strategies, and even aesthetic elements like decorative items. This pattern of continuous innovation requires the ability to analyze existing methods, identify weaknesses, and develop improvements. Their memory for individual relationships and social dynamics was probably exceptional as well. Living in small groups where cooperation was essential for survival, Neanderthals would have needed to remember complex social hierarchies, individual capabilities, and the history of relationships within their group. Evidence suggests they maintained stable social groups over extended periods, requiring sophisticated social intelligence and conflict resolution abilities. Perhaps most remarkably, Neanderthals showed evidence of abstract thinking and symbolic behavior. They created jewelry, used pigments for body decoration, and even showed evidence of ritual burial practices. These behaviors require the ability to think beyond immediate survival needs and engage with concepts like identity, status, and meaning. Their problem-solving abilities were remarkably flexible. When traditional methods failed, they could rapidly develop alternative approaches. Archaeological sites show evidence of improvised tools, modified hunting strategies, and adaptive responses to unexpected challenges. This cognitive flexibility allowed them to thrive in unpredictable environments where rigid thinking would have meant extinction. The combination of strong memory, effective learning systems, and innovative thinking created a subspecies that could accumulate knowledge and improve their capabilities over time. While they may not have developed the kind of explosive technological advancement that characterizes modern human civilization, they created a stable, sophisticated culture that persisted successfully for hundreds of thousands of years, a track record that modern humans haven't yet matched. When it comes to survival skills, Neanderthals weren't just getting by. They were mastering environments that would kill modern humans in hours. Their relationship with fire alone demonstrates a level of practical expertise that puts most wilderness survival enthusiasts to shame. While many people today struggle to start a campfire with matches and newspaper, Neanderthals were creating and maintaining fires in Ice Age conditions using nothing but stone, wood, and centuries of accumulated knowledge. Evidence from sites like Kesem Cave in Israel shows that Neanderthals were using fire systematically over 400,000 years ago. This wasn't just opportunistic use of naturally occurring fires. They were creating, controlling, and maintaining fires as a central part of their daily lives. They understood different wood types and their burning characteristics, could create fires in wet conditions, and knew how to bank coals to keep fires burning through the night, skills that many modern people have never developed. Their shelter construction was equally sophisticated. Neanderthal sites across Europe reveal evidence of complex structures built from mammoth bones, wood, and hide that could withstand brutal winter conditions. At Moldova in Ukraine, archaeologists uncovered the remains of shelters built from mammoth bones arranged in circular patterns, covered with hides, and heated by carefully positioned hearths. These weren't crude lean-tos. They were engineered structures designed for long-term habitation in sub-zero temperatures. The placement of their shelters shows remarkable environmental awareness. Neanderthal campsites were positioned to take advantage of natural windbreaks, morning sun exposure, and proximity to water sources while avoiding flood zones and predator territories. They could read landscape features like weather patterns, seasonal changes, and resource availability in ways that would require modern humans years of training to develop. Their clothing and gear represented thousands of years of refined survival technology. Neanderthals created fitted clothing from animal hides using bone needles and sinew thread. Their clothing wasn't just functional, it was specifically designed for extreme cold weather survival. Archaeological evidence suggests they understood layering principles, insulation techniques, and weatherproofing methods that rival modern outdoor gear. Food preservation was another area where Neanderthals excelled. They developed smoking techniques, drying methods, and storage systems that allowed them to maintain nutrition through long winters when fresh food was scarce. Sites show evidence of organized food storage areas, suggesting they could process and preserve large quantities of meat from successful hunts. Their tool maintenance and creation represented a level of craftsmanship that modern people rarely achieve without specialized training. Neanderthals could assess stone quality, predict fracture patterns, and create tools that were not just functional but durable enough for repeated use. They maintained toolkits that could last for months of heavy use, and they knew how to repair and modify tools as conditions changed. Neanderthal hunting abilities were so advanced that they successfully took down some of the most dangerous predators in Earth's history, using nothing but stone-tipped spears and coordinated tactics. Modern hunters with high-powered rifles, telescopic sights, and GPS tracking consider themselves successful if they can bag a deer. Neanderthals were regularly hunting woolly mammoths, cave bears, and woolly rhinos, animals that could easily kill them if the hunt went wrong. Their tracking skills were legendary. Neanderthals could follow animal trails across vast distances, predict movement patterns based on subtle environmental cues, and locate prey in conditions where visibility was limited by weather or terrain. They understood animal behavior so thoroughly that they could anticipate where herds would move based on seasonal changes, weather patterns, and predator pressure. The physical demands of their hunting style were extraordinary. Unlike modern humans who developed long-range projectile weapons, Neanderthals specialized in close-quarters hunting with thrusting spears. This meant getting within arm's reach of massive, dangerous animals and delivering killing blows through thick hide and muscle. The upper body strength required for this hunting style explains much of their robust physical development. Their hunting strategies showed remarkable sophistication. Archaeological evidence reveals they used landscape features to their advantage, driving herds into natural traps, coordinating group attacks from multiple directions, and timing their strikes for maximum effectiveness. At sites like La Côte de Saint-Brelade in Jersey, evidence shows they drove entire herds of mammoth and woolly rhino over cliffs, a hunting strategy that required precise timing, coordination, and understanding of animal psychology. Neanderthal hunting groups operated with military-like precision. Different individuals had specialized roles during hunts, from trackers who located prey, to strategic coordinators who directed the attack, to specialists who delivered killing blows. This level of coordination required sophisticated communication systems and the ability to execute complex plans under extreme pressure. Their success rate was remarkable considering the risks involved. Evidence from numerous sites shows that Neanderthals regularly brought down megafauna that could have fed their entire group for weeks. They weren't just lucky occasionally, they were consistent, skilled hunters who could reliably provide protein for their communities. The processing of large prey also demonstrated advanced skills. Neanderthals could efficiently butcher massive animals, separating meat, bones, hide, and other useful materials with stone tools. They understood anatomy well enough to locate vital organs quickly, and knew which parts of different animals were most nutritious or useful for tool making. Their hunting adaptability was equally impressive. When prey populations changed due to climate shifts or overhunting, Neanderthals could modify their techniques and target different species. Archaeological records show they successfully hunted everything from small birds to massive mammals, adjusting their strategies based on available prey and environmental conditions. Perhaps the most impressive aspect of Neanderthal survival skills was their ability to thrive in environments that would challenge even modern survival experts with the best equipment. They survived multiple ice ages, climate fluctuations, and environmental changes that wiped out numerous other species. This wasn't just about being tough, it was about developing an intimate understanding of their environment that allowed them to predict, adapt to, and exploit changing conditions. Neanderthals developed an encyclopedic knowledge of plant resources that put modern botanists to shame. They knew which plants were edible at different times of year, which ones had medicinal properties, and how to process toxic plants to make them safe for consumption. Evidence from sites across Europe shows they utilized dozens of different plant species for food, medicine, and tool-making materials. Their understanding of seasonal cycles was remarkably precise. Neanderthals could predict weather patterns, animal migrations, and resource availability with accuracy that allowed them to plan months in advance. They knew when and where to find specific resources, how long they would be available, and how to time their movements to take maximum advantage of seasonal opportunities. Water location and management was another area of expertise. Neanderthals could find water sources in arid environments, assess water quality, and even modify natural water features to improve access. Some sites show evidence of artificial water collection systems, suggesting they could engineer solutions to water scarcity problems. Their navigation abilities were extraordinary. Without maps, compasses, or GPS systems, Neanderthals could navigate across hundreds of miles of complex terrain, maintaining accurate mental maps of resource locations, seasonal patterns, and territorial boundaries. They could travel to specific locations and return reliably, even across unfamiliar territory. Neanderthals also showed remarkable adaptability to different environments. Archaeological evidence shows they successfully lived in forest environments, open grasslands, coastal areas, and mountainous regions. Each environment required different survival strategies, tool technologies, and resource management approaches, yet they mastered them all. Their risk assessment and management skills were probably superior to most modern humans. Living in an environment where a single mistake could be fatal, Neanderthals developed an acute sense of environmental dangers and risk mitigation strategies. They could assess weather conditions, predator threats, and resource availability to make survival decisions that maximize their chances of success. The integration of all these survival skills created a subspecies that was essentially perfectly adapted to their environment. While modern humans rely on technology, infrastructure, and specialized knowledge distributed across large populations, Neanderthals carried all essential survival knowledge within their communities. Every adult was a survival expert capable of providing food, shelter, tools, and protection under the harshest conditions imaginable. Neanderthal society operated on principles that were fundamentally different from modern human social structures. And understanding these differences is crucial for predicting how a confrontation might unfold. While modern humans developed complex hierarchical societies with specialized roles and abstract governance systems, Neanderthals perfected small group cooperation that was incredibly efficient and surprisingly egalitarian. Neanderthal groups typically consisted of 15 to 30 individuals, usually extended family units that had lived and worked together for generations. This wasn't just a survival strategy. It was a social system that created unprecedented levels of trust, coordination, and mutual support. Every member knew every other member's capabilities, personality, and reliability in crisis situations. They didn't need complex management structures or formal leadership roles, because they had developed intuitive cooperation that functioned like a single organism with multiple parts. Archaeological evidence suggests Neanderthal groups shared resources more equitably than most human societies. There's little evidence of significant wealth accumulation or status-based resource hoarding. When a hunt was successful, the entire group benefited. When times were hard, everyone tightened their belts together. This social cohesion created groups that were remarkably resilient under stress and could maintain morale even during extended hardship. Their decision-making processes were probably consensus-based rather than hierarchical. Without clear evidence of permanent leadership positions, Neanderthal groups likely made important decisions through group discussion and agreement. While this might seem inefficient compared to modern command structures, it actually created faster decision-making in crisis situations because every group member understood and supported the chosen course of action. The social roles within Neanderthal groups were likely fluid and based on expertise rather than rigid hierarchies. The best tracker might lead during hunting expeditions, while the most skilled toolmaker might direct technological decisions. This flexibility meant that groups could adapt their leadership structure based on changing circumstances and challenges. Neanderthal child-rearing was a community effort that created individuals with remarkable social cohesion and shared knowledge. Children learned from multiple adults, absorbed the collective wisdom of the group, and developed strong emotional bonds with every group member. This created adults who were psychologically invested in group success and willing to take significant personal risks for the benefit of their community. Their conflict resolution mechanisms were probably highly developed out of necessity. In small groups living in close quarters, unresolved conflicts could be catastrophic. Neanderthals would have developed sophisticated methods for managing disputes, maintaining group harmony, and preventing internal conflicts from destroying the cooperation essential for survival. The ability to communicate complex ideas quickly and accurately would be crucial in any confrontation, and Neanderthal communication systems were far more sophisticated than early researchers assumed. While they may not have developed the complex abstract language that characterizes modern human communication, they created highly effective systems for coordinating group activities and sharing tactical information. Recent studies of Neanderthal anatomy suggest they were capable of sophisticated vocalization. Their hyoid bones, which support the larynx and enable complex speech sounds, were virtually identical to modern human structures. Their brain organization also showed development in areas associated with language processing, suggesting they had the neurological hardware necessary for complex communication. However, Neanderthal communication probably emphasized practical, immediate information rather than abstract concepts. Their language would have been optimized for conveying tactical information during hunts, describing environmental conditions, and coordinating group activities. Every word and sound would have had clear, practical applications that could mean the difference between success and failure in survival situations. Their nonverbal communication systems were probably incredibly sophisticated. Living and working in close proximity for extended periods, Neanderthal groups would have developed subtle gesture systems, facial expressions, and body language that could convey complex information silently. This would have been essential during hunting, when vocal communication could alert prey or predators to their presence. Archaeological evidence suggests Neanderthals used various forms of symbolic communication. They created jewelry, used pigments for body decoration, and may have used symbolic markings to convey information about territory, resources, or group identity. While these symbols might seem primitive compared to modern writing systems, they represented sophisticated information storage and transmission methods. Their coordination during complex activities like hunting or tool-making shows they could share detailed technical information effectively. The consistency of their tool-making traditions across different sites and time periods suggests they had developed reliable methods for transmitting technical knowledge from experienced craftsmen to apprentices. Neanderthal groups probably developed specialized communication protocols for different situations. They would have had distinct communication methods for hunting, emphasizing stealth and precision, daily camp activities, focusing on resource management and task coordination, and crisis situations, prioritizing immediate tactical information. The speed of their tactical communication was probably superior to modern human systems in many situations. Without the abstract complexity that characterizes much modern human communication, Neanderthals could convey essential tactical information quickly and clearly, allowing rapid coordination during time-sensitive situations like hunts or defensive responses to threats. Neanderthal culture created psychological advantages that would be significant factors in any confrontation with modern humans. Their cultural values emphasized different priorities than modern human societies, creating individuals who were psychologically prepared for challenges that would overwhelm most contemporary people. The Neanderthal relationship with violence was fundamentally different from modern human attitudes. Violence wasn't something to be avoided or delegated to specialists. It was a normal, necessary part of daily life. Every adult Neanderthal had experience with life or death situations, physical confrontations with dangerous animals, and the psychological stress of combat. This created individuals who could function effectively under extreme stress without the psychological trauma that often affects modern humans in violent situations. Their pain tolerance was probably extraordinary. Archaeological evidence shows Neanderthals routinely survived injuries that would be debilitating or fatal for modern humans. Broken bones that healed without medical intervention, deep wounds from animal attacks, and other traumatic injuries were common in Neanderthal remains. Yet these individuals continued to live active, productive lives. This suggests both physical toughness and psychological resilience that allowed them to function despite significant pain or injury. Neanderthal culture emphasized collective responsibility and group survival over individual concerns. While modern humans often struggle with conflicting priorities between personal safety and group benefit, Neanderthals were raised from childhood to prioritize group success. This cultural conditioning created individuals who could make tactical decisions based purely on effectiveness, without being distracted by personal survival concerns. Their relationship with death was also psychologically advantageous. Death was a constant presence in Neanderthal life, from hunting accidents, animal attacks, exposure, and the general hardships of Ice Age survival. This familiarity with mortality created individuals who could face life-threatening situations without the paralyzing fear that often affects people from safer environments. The Neanderthal concept of personal space and physical contact was likely very different from modern human norms. Living in close quarters and engaging in physically demanding group activities, they would have been comfortable with close physical proximity and contact that might feel threatening or uncomfortable to modern humans. This psychological comfort with physical closeness could provide tactical advantages in close quarters confrontations. Their cultural values probably emphasized practical skills and immediate results over abstract thinking or long-term planning beyond immediate survival needs. While this might seem limiting, it created individuals who could focus completely on immediate challenges without being distracted by theoretical concerns or abstract possibilities. In a direct confrontation, this single-minded focus on immediate practical solutions could be a significant advantage. Neanderthal culture also created individuals who were psychologically independent and self-reliant while maintaining strong group loyalty. Unlike modern humans who often depend on external systems and specialized experts, every Neanderthal adult was capable of handling most survival challenges independently. This combination of self-reliance and group loyalty created formidable opponents who could function effectively, both individually and as part of coordinated group efforts. Let's get down to the brutal reality of a direct physical confrontation between you and a Neanderthal. In a straight-up, no-weapons, hand-to-hand fight, the outcome would be swift and decisive, and not in your favor. The physical advantages we explored in Chapter 1 aren't just theoretical. They translate into overwhelming combat superiority that would end most fights before they really began. In the opening moments of physical contact, you'd immediately understand why Neanderthals dominated Ice Age Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. Their grip strength alone would be devastating. We're talking about hands that could crush bones and tear muscle with casual effort. The first time those massive hands made contact, you'd realize you weren't fighting another modern human. You'd be fighting what essentially amounts to a biological weapon designed by natural selection for physical dominance. Their center of gravity and body structure would make them incredibly difficult to take down or throw off balance. While modern humans might have slight advantages in height and reach, Neanderthals were built like fire hydrants, low, stable, and impossibly strong. Their wider rib cage and broader shoulders would make traditional wrestling or grappling techniques largely ineffective, while their superior bone density would allow them to absorb impacts that would incapacitate modern fighters. The power differential would be most apparent in striking exchanges. A Neanderthal punch wouldn't just hurt. It would be delivered with the force of someone who spent their entire life performing manual labor that would hospitalize modern athletes. Their fist would be backed by dense forearm bones, massive shoulder muscles, and a core strength that could generate devastating rotational power. Meanwhile, their ability to absorb punishment would make your counterattacks largely ineffective. Speed might seem like a potential advantage for modern humans, but this assumption probably overestimates our actual quickness advantage while underestimating Neanderthal reaction times. Their nervous systems were optimized for split-second responses to life-threatening situations. When facing charging megafauna or coordinating high-stakes group hunts, sluggish reflexes meant death. They developed reaction speeds that would rival modern combat athletes. The psychological aspects would be equally challenging. While most modern humans have little experience with serious physical violence, Neanderthals lived in a world where physical confrontation was routine. They wouldn't experience the shock, hesitation, or emotional turmoil that often affects modern people in violent situations. They would approach the fight with calm, focused intensity, while you were still processing the reality of the situation. Even factors like pain tolerance would heavily favor the Neanderthal. Archaeological evidence shows they regularly functioned with injuries that would immobilize modern humans. A Neanderthal could continue fighting effectively even after sustaining damage that would end the fight for their modern opponent. The conclusion for direct physical combat is unavoidable. Unless you're an elite modern athlete with extensive combat training, a Neanderthal would dominate you in any physical confrontation. The gap in strength, durability, and combat psychology would simply be too large to overcome through technique or determination alone. While direct combat heavily favors the Neanderthal, survival challenges present a more complex picture with different scenarios potentially favoring different opponents. The outcome would depend heavily on the specific conditions, duration, and rules of the survival challenge, but Neanderthals would hold significant advantages in most realistic scenarios. In short-term survival situations lasting days to weeks, Neanderthals would have overwhelming advantages. Their ability to create fire, build shelter, find and process food, and navigate unfamiliar terrain using only natural resources would be immediately apparent. While most modern humans struggle with basic camping even with manufactured gear, Neanderthals could establish functional camps and reliable food sources within hours of being placed in wilderness environments. The psychological stress of survival situations would also favor Neanderthals significantly. Modern humans often experience panic, decision paralysis, and emotional breakdown when removed from familiar support systems and placed in challenging natural environments. Neanderthals would approach the same situations with calm competence, viewing survival challenges as normal daily activities rather than extraordinary crises. However, longer-term survival scenarios might reveal some modern human advantages. Our superior abstract reasoning and innovation capabilities could potentially allow us to develop more sophisticated solutions to complex problems. Modern humans excel at analyzing situations, identifying patterns, and creating novel approaches to challenges. Given enough time, these cognitive advantages might allow a modern human to develop survival strategies that could compete with Neanderthal instinctive expertise. The availability of modern knowledge would also be a significant factor. A modern human with extensive survival training, wilderness experience, or military background would be far more competitive than the average person. Someone who had studied primitive survival techniques, understood basic engineering principles, or had experience with hunting and foraging could potentially leverage modern knowledge to match some Neanderthal capabilities. Environmental factors would heavily influence the outcome. Neanderthals were specifically adapted to Ice Age European conditions, so they would dominate in cold, forested, or mountainous environments. However, modern humans have adapted to a much wider range of environments, and in tropical, desert, or other non-European ecosystems, the Neanderthal advantages might be reduced. The rules of the survival challenge would also matter enormously. If the challenge allowed use of any materials found in the environment, modern humans might be able to repurpose discarded items or use knowledge of chemistry and physics to create advantages. If the challenge strictly limited participants to naturally occurring materials and traditional techniques, Neanderthals would hold decisive advantages. Team survival challenges might present interesting dynamics. While individual Neanderthals were superior survivors, modern humans excel at large group coordination and division of labor. A team of modern humans might be able to leverage specialized knowledge and coordinated effort to compete with Neanderthal capabilities, especially if the team included individuals with relevant expertise. But here's the harsh reality. Most survival scenarios would favor the Neanderthal decisively. Their combination of physical capabilities, practical skills, and psychological preparation for hardship would prove overwhelming in most realistic survival challenges. The average modern human would likely struggle with basic tasks that Neanderthals could accomplish effortlessly, while also dealing with the psychological stress of being removed from familiar technological supports. After examining all the evidence, we need to address the fundamental question. If Neanderthals were so physically superior, intellectually capable, and expertly adapted to survival, why did modern humans ultimately prevail while Neanderthals went extinct? The answer reveals both the ultimate verdict of our hypothetical matchup and the subtle advantages that allowed our species to inherit the Earth. The Neanderthal extinction wasn't the result of a single catastrophic event or obvious inferiority. Instead, it was the accumulation of small disadvantages that became significant over thousands of years. While Neanderthals excelled at perfecting existing techniques and maintaining stable, successful lifestyles, modern humans developed a crucial advantage in adaptability and innovation speed that proved decisive in the long term. Modern humans developed superior social technologies that allowed larger group coordination and more efficient information sharing. While Neanderthal groups were limited to 15 to 30 individuals by their social organization, modern humans could coordinate activities across much larger populations. This allowed for greater specialization, faster technological development, and more efficient resource exploitation. Our capacity for abstract thinking and symbolic representation gave us advantages in planning, communication, and cultural transmission that weren't immediately apparent but became crucial over time. Modern humans could develop and share complex ideas more effectively, leading to faster cultural evolution and more sophisticated technologies. The invention of long-range hunting weapons was probably the technological breakthrough that sealed the Neanderthal fate. While Neanderthals perfected close-quarters hunting with thrusting spears, modern humans developed atlatls and eventually bow and arrow technology. This allowed us to hunt the same prey more safely and efficiently, reducing the physical risks that made Neanderthal hunting so dangerous. Climate change was the final nail in the coffin. Neanderthals were perfectly adapted to stable Ice Age conditions, but when the climate began changing rapidly around 40,000 years ago, their specialized adaptations became disadvantages. Modern humans, with our greater behavioral flexibility and faster cultural adaptation, could adjust to changing conditions more quickly. The population dynamics tell the real story. Neanderthal populations were always small and scattered across Europe, while modern human populations were larger and more connected. When resources became scarce or environmental conditions changed, modern humans could draw on larger networks for support and innovation, while isolated Neanderthal groups had to solve problems on their own. Interbreeding also played a role, but not in the way most people think. Rather than being conquered or replaced, many Neanderthal populations were gradually absorbed into expanding modern human groups. Today, most people of European and Asian descent carry 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA, meaning our extinct cousins didn't really disappear, they became part of us. In our hypothetical matchup scenarios, the specific conditions would determine the winner. In direct physical confrontation, the Neanderthal wins overwhelmingly. In short-term survival challenges lasting days or weeks, the Neanderthal holds massive advantages. In medium-term scenarios lasting months, the outcome depends heavily on environmental conditions and available resources. However, in long-term scenarios requiring innovation and adaptation to changing conditions, modern humans would eventually gain competitive advantages. Our ability to develop new technologies, adapt to different environments, and coordinate with larger groups would become decisive factors over time. But here's the most honest assessment. The average modern human would lose to a Neanderthal in almost any individual competition based on the skills that mattered in the ancient world. We've traded individual physical and survival capabilities for collective intelligence and technological advancement. Our strength lies not in personal superiority, but in our ability to work together, share knowledge, and build upon the achievements of previous generations. The ultimate verdict depends on how you frame the question. In terms of individual capability, The Neanderthal wins decisively. But in terms of evolutionary strategy and long-term success, modern humans proved superior. We didn't win because we were individually better. We won because we developed better systems for cooperation, innovation, and adaptation. So what's the final answer to our original question? In a brutal, honest assessment of individual capabilities, the Neanderthal would dominate almost any modern human in the skills that actually mattered for survival in the ancient world. They were simply built better for the world they lived in. Stronger, tougher, more skilled, and psychologically prepared for challenges that would break most of us. The Neanderthal you'd face in our hypothetical confrontation would be an incredible opponent. Perhaps the most formidable individual human-like adversary our species has ever encountered. They'd win the fight, survive the wilderness challenge, and probably shake their head at how soft modern humans have become. Yet, here we are, and there they aren't. So there you have it, the ultimate showdown between you and humanity's most formidable extinct relatives. The verdict might sting a little. In almost any individual competition that mattered in the ancient world, you'd probably lose to a Neanderthal. They were stronger, tougher, more skilled at survival, and better adapted to the harsh realities of prehistoric life than almost any modern human. But here's the fascinating twist in this story. You're sitting here watching this video, thinking about these questions, and engaging with complex ideas that span thousands of years of human history. That Neanderthal, for all their impressive individual capabilities, isn't here to defend themselves or share their side of the story. The very fact that you can contemplate this matchup represents the ultimate victory of modern human evolutionary strategy. We didn't win because we were individually superior. We won because we developed something even more powerful than personal strength or survival skills. The ability to accumulate knowledge, coordinate in large groups, and build upon the achievements of previous generations. Every tool you use, every idea you understand, and every comfort you enjoy represents thousands of years of collective human effort that no individual, Neanderthal or modern human, could have accomplished alone. The Neanderthals were magnificent in their own right. They survived conditions that would kill us, accomplished feats of strength and endurance that we can barely comprehend, and maintained successful societies for hundreds of thousands of years. They deserve our respect and admiration, not the stereotypical dismissal they've received for so long. In the end, this isn't really about who would win in a fight. It's about understanding what makes us human, appreciating the incredible journey our species has taken, and recognizing that our greatest strength has always been our ability to work together toward goals that no individual could achieve alone. The story of humans versus Neanderthals is just one chapter in the incredible saga of human evolution and the fascinating characters who shaped our world. If you found yourself thinking differently about our extinct cousins, or if this made you curious about other surprising historical matchups, you're in for a treat. What other historical what-if scenarios would you like to see explored? Should we tackle whether a Roman legionnaire could beat a medieval knight? Could a Viking warrior defeat a samurai? Or maybe you're curious about how different civilizations might have fared against each other in their prime? Subscribe to Weird Histories and drop a comment with your favorite historical topic. We might just turn your suggestion into our next deep exploration into the fascinating, brutal, and surprising world of human history. Because the past is full of stories that are stranger, more complex, and more interesting than we ever imagined.